Go to NOAA if you want to see the real stuff. National Oceanic Atmosphere Administration.
I've gotten that app actually.
That's what's looked at.
Hello? Sorry, I thought I heard someone call my name.
Wow. Yeah. I was 51, not sure if I know what I'm doing all the time.
Asked everyone if we could prepare to get ready for our next presenter. We're going to get started. Our next presenter is ready and we're ready to go so we can stay on time. As our city council, if they would come back and take the seats. Wait, Kevin. Our next presenter that will be presenting to us downtown revitalization and update, Mr. Kevin Harris, our downtown development. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Let us thank him for being here. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you for that hand clap of praise. Good morning. Good morning to the citizen delegates and the citizens that have made their way up the mountain to work with us, and also good morning to the mayor pro tem, city manager, all of our council members. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about downtown strategy and specifically residential in downtown. I first would like to begin with a vision statement that has been crafted, put forward by meetings with the CCRP, and it talks about this vision statement. It incorporates our transit systems, talks about the advantages of the train, walking trails that border downtown, and it also anticipates the Mill to Monk Trail, Dr. Nelson. And it also talks about the center, that downtown being a center for entrepreneurial opportunity. It addresses education and technology, and that's relating to having an Edgecombe Community College campus in the heart of downtown, and the Biotech Center, which is a nursing school that we have downtown. Also speaks to the regional, local and regional artists and musicians that we have as assets to our downtown, to our community. And it also anticipates the proposed art district as well as an entertainment district. But more specifically, this vision statement talks about housing and downtown being an opportunity for unique housing options that are attractive to professionals and affordable to seniors and the workforce. But first, I want to share some visions of why it would be attractive to live downtown, and the city leadership can also take some pride in what they've done over the years and what we have downtown as assets and amenities. If you'll scroll through those and give them some time to look at it, because it is a large body of work that you can be proud of. Thank you. So, thank you. And now just trying to size up or quantify the opportunity for downtown housing. When use of the 2019 Esri statistics that revealed that there were 4,194 employees in downtown and in downtown and within a half mile of downtown. Also, we already have 1,400 residents that live within that half mile radius of downtown. I also want to bring out the downtown residential presents the opportunity to define the character of our downtown, making it inclusive and diverse in every aspect. Also, it includes the opportunity to have mixed income. And I really just emphasize the advantages of 24-hour residence, heads and beds. And that is new. That's really new for our downtown. I was talking to Mr. Varney and asking, well, when was the last time that people lived downtown? Of course, it dates back several years, probably before most of us were born. So the idea of having heads and beds downtown, it's really new. But having that, the advantage of that is that heads and beds will patronize existing restaurants and businesses, and will also encourage more businesses to move downtown and more development downtown. Next slide. Now, currently downtown, we have existing residential units, and this is within the downtown core. We have 40 units, which is really comprised of Harambe Square, which is senior housing, and then the Douglas Block. And then we have a few individual units downtown. Under construction, we have 25 units, and it's really 23 units at Davis Lofts under construction, and 2 units being constructed at the old Music City building. And then certainly we have the proposed at Tarboro Street, the 60 units of workforce affordable housing. And so with all of that in place, it would be 125 units in downtown core. And we are aspiring to have 500 people living downtown within the next 5 years. And that may seem like a big number, but when I share some of the opportunities or share where we have opportunities, you see that is certainly doable. And also downtown presents it's I would call it a transformative opportunity for us to improve the property values downtown. And this is the big revenue opportunity. And I just wanted to point out what's happening with a few properties that were developed. Like for instance, 123 South Church Street, Moondy's restaurant space, the beginning value was $45,660. Post-rehab value, or the value now, is $176,940. That is a 286% increase in property value. And that translates into a 286% increase in revenue derived, not to include the utilities and the sales tax revenues. Dr. Monique Brown, whereas she doesn't have residents in her office building, you can see where the beginning value was $50,110, and now it's $310,410, 519% increase in value. So the value increased 5 times. And likewise, again, that's that increase in revenue it corresponds. And then you can see the 2 buildings that are under construction with residential, Music City building, the value of the 2 buildings starting out at $80,000. That is a paltry sum for a downtown property, but he's invested $400,000 in it thus far, and so I'm using what he's invested in the property as the post-rehab value, and that's usually how it plays out. And so that property would be a 400% increase in value. And Davis Lofts, you can see that is a tremendous increase. It's kind of staggering, but it's real. And so just the notion that we can price up our downtown properties and the revenue derived by these percentages, just can't emphasize that enough. Next slide. And downtown residential. Here, what I listed show here are some opportunities for downtown residential. You can see Toweltown, the Dillard Supply Building, the old bottling company that's on Hill Street and Washington Street, and then a series of buildings before that on Howard Street. Then we have an infill lot at Douglas Block, actually 2 infill lots at Douglas Block that represent the opportunity for new construction, new residential construction. And you see the old Trip Furniture building. So I won't call them all out, but you see that we have a vast amount of opportunity for residential downtown. Thank you. And so to achieve this, we put forward some new financial incentives. The first is the residential production program, residential production grant, which we actually started talking about last summer. And this was put forward because when developers take on these buildings and include residential, there are added costs. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So And those added costs, it's fire suppression, may need elevators, other ADA requirements. You have added electrical and plumbing. And what I've learned from the developers is that upper floor residential can add as much as $60 per square foot to the cost of development. And so we're putting forward this incentive to assist with that. It would be $7,500 per unit, and with a max of $150,000. And a second, and I do want to point out that the residential production grant, we have crafted that policy, and it's ready for your review and hopeful approval at some point. The real estate development incentive grant, that's a new grant that we're proposing. And it's the real estate development incentive grant, or the READY program. And that is really in response to when I shared the opportunity for residential development downtown. You saw that those are pretty sizable projects, multi-million-dollar projects. And so this incentive helps us in that respect. But Madam Manager said she wanted to make sure it was an incentive that could not only be used downtown, but also in the connecting corridors, and not so much just for big projects, but some of the middle-sized projects. And so we have it's a tiered incentive. You see if it's a $2 million project, the incentive would be $500,000 or 25%, whichever is less. And you see that plays out through each tier, but the tiers are 2 million, 1 million, 500, 250, which translates to 500,000 in incentive, 250 in incentive, 125,000 and 62,500. And so these incentives, this money can help with restoring these older buildings, but also in new construction. And we also see it helping us to bring businesses downtown, not just retail, but office businesses downtown. And then certainly it will be a job creator for us for downtown. And we have the real target or criteria for this incentive is we look at job creation, and we also look at return on our investment. So for the $500,000 incentive, we're looking to create 20 jobs, but also recoup that $500,000 in 5 years. And so we'll do an analysis to determine if that plays out. And when we look at the revenue opportunity, it's the property tax increase, utilities, and as well as the sales tax. And so we have a method to calculate all of that, and so we look for that to pan out so that we would be repaid in 5 years. Next slide, thank you. And as I mentioned, the city manager wanted to make sure that this was a transportable incentive so that we could reach beyond downtown. So the formal line is the downtown transitional. That would be the blue area that goes out to Raleigh Boulevard, at Atlantic Avenue, East Grand, Grace. And so it goes beyond the core, but also we have these target corridors that would include Church Street, Falls Road, Peachtree, Raleigh Boulevard, Atlantic Avenue, and East Grand. That's one that we would add to that. So that's what I wanted to bring forward. And again, we're focusing on residential. So any questions?
How many vacant properties that you know that we have downtown? A lot of people are coming to our city asking about buildings that are vacant or that are for sale or for lease.
Actually, vacant.
On the website where we can direct individuals when they ask that question, that there's somewhere where they can go and look that information up.
Well, you mentioned there's vacant, and then there's available for sale. So and we do on the downtown website, we do list those properties that are available for sale as well as for lease. And the number of available properties for sale, I don't know the exact number, but the number of vacant properties, when we did analysis account recently, and it was there were, of the properties downtown, of the 170 buildings, 80 at the time, 80 were vacant. I think it's probably about 75 now. But in terms of what's available for sale, there's about 8 properties available for sale, and they aren't all listed. So, and what we're learning is, if you're interested in a vacant property downtown, we'll match you up with the owner, and then you start having that discussion. But as a general rule, their properties aren't, many of them are not listed.
Thank you.
Mayor.
So when are the guidelines for the READY program going to be, solidified, I guess, or greater detail? I think it's a great idea. I think we do need to incentivize folks to move here. I think it's going to take something along these lines to make it happen. But, what's the application cycle look like? Or are you close to proposing something on that, or is that coming forward in the future?
I know we can have that ready in 30 days. The manager and I have been working through some of the details, and we have a rough draft.
Got it. Thanks.
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
I have questions along the same line with the READY program. And I think it, certainly could spur some development, but I guess my question, whether you can answer it now or when 30 days you come back to us, but where's the money going to come from? Or is this going to be a rebate type? Well, I have to use that term loosely, rebate with property taxes. I don't know. Also along the lines of, one of my concerns and themes I'm going back to is going back to the capacity of monitoring these grants to ensure that whatever we expect we're inspecting, do we have the capacity to do that? Are we going to do that? What kind of requirements are we going to have on there? I see there's, I think actually to Dr. Robertson's point earlier, applies here as well. I like to see that there are jobs associated with it, but what are those jobs? What are they paying that we're going to have anything of that nature revolving around that? And are we going to have any health insurance? I know I'm on a state level, depending on whether a company offers health insurance, not depends on what level that they receive within benefit. And then I guess they're my questions right there. I do think it would be something worthy of consideration, but I want a whole lot more detail. And there's some of the questions that I have, and Kevin, I don't know if you want to answer them now or just moving forward when you come back in 30 days or so, have those ready. So thank you.
Okay. I do want to make one comment. You mentioned the tax rebate program, and the folks from Asheville were careful to assure me that it's the tax abatement program.
You say potato, I say potato.
I know. And you mentioned how much if we had those, and I don't know exactly how many those buildings that I showed, but if all of those buildings, you had a developer says, I'm ready to move all these buildings, you probably need, and I was joking with the city manager last night, you probably need $10 million. But when you think that restoring those buildings will restore your downtown fully, and you price up your downtown 500% and your corresponding tax revenue 500%, it's an investment. And so, and as long as and then getting back to your point of testing it, we certainly can, because we're looking for those jobs to be in place within 5 years, and certainly we'll anticipate that return on investment on the front end. So, and it won't take a lot of manpower to do that, to make sure. And that, let me point out something. It's one job per 25,000, and we talked to Commerce about the different programs that they had, and they had as a general rule, they invest $10,000 per job, but we use Commerce's NC Main Street Solutions Fund that that requires one job per 25,000 in investment, because they have the good and bad of it is for downtown, it's as much or more about restoring the buildings than it is the job creation. You want both, and that's why our job requirement is one job per 25,000. And in terms of the type jobs, there will be you have the construction jobs certainly, but then whatever business goes into that building, we'll count those jobs. And so, but we don't have any requirements on that it be a certain type job, a certain wage, because again, the good and bad is that our real driver is that we restore these buildings and revitalize our downtown.
Yeah, but one of the things that resonates with me on this trip and going through the tour that we did on Wednesday, I guess it was Wednesday, losing track of time. Here in Asheville, they certainly rely on their industries, tourism, and retail, and then with that brings challenges, especially with affordability, and we're talking about affordability here. So hence the question with the requirements. And I hear you loud and clear what you're saying, the chicken and the egg, also refurbishing the buildings, but I think it's something to consider. Going back to Commerce, I know Commerce, if you offer health insurance, you get 10 grand per job. And then if you don't offer health insurance, it's like 6,500 a job. That's just what Commerce does on some grants I'm involved in. So I think I hear you, but I think it's worthy of consideration, because we do want not only to upfit our buildings, but we want to, if we're going to pony up money from the city to have some quality jobs that people can afford to live. And I think we've heard that here. We've heard it from some of the folks, the delegates that are here, and I think we hear it from Rocky Mountain as well. So thanks.
Okay, thank you.
City Manager.
Yeah, to answer the question about the funding, so you can expect to see this as part of the upcoming budget recommendations from the city manager. So at that time, you'll have an opportunity to either add more funds to it or not. But I don't think we have buildings at this point that are ready to receive these funds. Maybe one, but I'm not sure that so I think we got a little time between now and July 1st to have an appropriation be a part of FY22 budget.
Yep.
Question. I was listening to Councilman Daughtridge. Were you suggesting that the grants that have been provided thus far are not being used correctly? I know you said make sure that they are monitored, that the monies that they receive are being used for that purpose. I didn't quite understand what you were saying.
What we have addressed in the past, and the questions I've had towards this, even as recently maybe as 2 meetings ago, I don't recall, but I've had questions about monitoring grants and monies that are given out, even from the purchasing side. And most recently in the city council meeting, when I was questioning, the response I received was, we don't have the manpower to monitor a lot of things that go on, and we go through and rely a lot on trust. And so I want to make sure if we're putting forth city dollars that we inspect it. And so don't infer anything. I'm meaning exactly what I say. I want to make sure we inspect everything that we're going to put forth with tax dollars, because we're fiduciaries of this money, and we just don't need to go expend the money and hope and pray someone follows our rules and regulations. We need to inspect it to make sure what we're expecting is actually coming to fruition. That's exactly what I mean. Don't read anything more or less into it but that's what I mean.
Well, I wasn't inferring to what you said, but I take a walk downtown daily, and I can see the transformation that has taken place in our downtown, from boarded up buildings to now with windows and glass storefronts, artwork, the facades are beautiful. It's whereas we were being talked about as a city, as the Amtrak comes through the middle of our city, the only thing the passenger would see were boarded up buildings. Now, if you're a passenger on Amtrak, you can see majority of those boards have come down, buildings have been restored, beautiful facade to go along with our beautiful downtown streetscape. And so I want to ask Mr. Harris a question. What is the process? Because when you administer or approve grants for downtown, as you mentioned, I'm quite sure that you have to go back, or that you make sure the work is done before the persons or the individual are being reimbursed, correct?
Oh, yes.
So we're just not giving money away and people are not doing the work, correct?
That's correct. And I can assure you that, frankly, I really didn't hear it as a real negative. I heard you playing your role as making sure that we're fiduciarily responsible.
Well, wait,
But
I didn't say it was, you didn't hear it as negative, but I've heard it more than one time. And it is negative to me, and it's a negative to a lot of people who are investing their time and their labor in downtown.
right. And
So if you're just giving away money and not inspecting or assuring that the work is being done, then that's on you. And then it falls on us, but I'm quite sure you're not doing that because your job will be on the line, correct?
Absolutely. And so just to continue on, so we do have policies. Our policy dictates our process. And so we work through that process, and I feel assured that when it gets tested, we've gone through the process. And fortunately for me, it's kind of simple because most of our programs are reimbursement programs. And so, and then they say that they're going to do a certain amount of work, and then I get to go out and make sure that work is done, and then submit the invoices for reimbursement. So it gets a little simple. I mean, at least I'm trying to articulate it simply, but the process is followed.
Excuse me, let me get the city
Thank you.
manager to address.
Yeah, because certainly I do want to clear the air, particularly if there's any thought in this room or publicly that the city just haphazardly rolls out money. And CM Daughtridge, when you asked the question about this particular contract, that was a very large contract for street resurfacing. And when you say to go out and inspect, well, it does require a great deal of staff work to ensure that every single contract of this city is somehow monitored by a staff person. Now, I have no problem presenting to this council exactly what that cost will look like, but I can assure you it's going to be a very large number. And then you can deliberate whether or not you want to either include that in the budget, take something else out of the budget to fund it, or however you want to address it. But at the same time, the staff does follow certain rules and regulations to ensure that, one, we have followed the financial protocol as far as the performance of the contract. Yes, there are staff people who go out and monitor things, but we cannot afford to put somebody on every contract and have them there each time the work is done. So I do want to assure the council that we do have protocols in place. And as a matter of fact, that was one of the purposes for separating business and collections from finance as a separate department, because it gives that separation, if you will. And so the business and collections piece now is removed from the very people who also monitor the contracts or the loans or the grants. That's separate and apart from. So there are things that we have done internally to ensure the absolute best for accountability of these funds. But I will certainly present to you as a council what that cost is going to look like. And I'll just say, you might want to fasten up your seatbelts, because it will be a very staggering cost for that.
Thank you, City Manager, and thanks for the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your presentation on downtown. And I know that we will look forward to, as we move on in this process. Councilman Walker.
Very briefly, Mr. Harris, thank you for the presentation. Do we have a visual, like a mock visual that people could see of what our vision is for downtown? Or do we just have, the picture of existing buildings or the picture of existing work like you've shown? But do we have, a visual, a mock visual representation of what we envision downtown to look like, so that people that are willing to invest, or people that are even inside of the city and not just outside investors that are looking to invest, can kind of have a concept of what downtown, as far as a city, looks like, or what we want it to look like?
I would say we do not have a visual of a one visual, because that would look more, I guess, more like a map. We do have a map that shows the four quads: northwest, southwest, southeast. But in terms of images of what the buildings will look like, and I mean, we have several images of what buildings can look like individually, but we don't have one big picture of downtown. And that, I think, and that was one of the things that Councilman Blackwell, he talked about marketing. We've been deficient in our marketing. And so that would certainly be a part of that. And so it is a need.
So that's something that we possibly are looking towards having in the near future? Or is that something that we as council need to ask for? Or is that something that's already on the table?
That, well, getting marketing support is something that's on the table, and that certainly be a component of it.
Certainly, hopefully we can make it one of our action plans.
Could I ask this, could we get the council maybe an update of the buildings that have been restored or benefited from the grants, whether it's facade or whatever, maybe the before and after, so we could actually, for those who haven't had the opportunity to actually go downtown, that can see that.
No, we can do that. That'd be our pleasure.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Chris Miller.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to the discussion about the audit piece of it. An audit, by definition, is not an examination of each and every detail of each and every contract. Auditing is a sampling process. There are statistics involved around that. Depends on the number of transactions you're auditing and so forth. But that is readily available information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Chris Miller. Is there any other question? If not, we really want to thank you, Mr. Harris, and we will be excited about the downtown movement. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we do have representation from our delegates. At this time, we'll have opportunity to come forth and share.
Greetings to everyone. And again, I just want to say thank you for such a great retreat. I'm not here today to read an obituary. Rocky Mount is much alive and thriving. However, I do represent the Rocky Mount Redevelopment Commission, where James Mills sat as our chair, and I'm just representing the Rocky Mount Redevelopment Committee. And just a few things I want to bring to our attention about our great city. And one of them is that, first of all, our image will always go further than we will. And what we do, say, and provoke, the story always changes. So, and especially with our newspaper, we somehow need to make sure that we have a sit-down meeting and we have rebranded the city, but the newspaper need to continue that rebranding. We have a whole lot more positive things. Close, okay, all right. We have a whole lot more positive things that happen in our city more than negative things. And those things, I know that they should be brought out. I know because of the business that we're in the city, we always will turn to a study. We have to do studies. Well, I just want to bring to our attention that we are the students in our city, and we are studying it right now. And so before we leave this retreat, my question to you is, what grade would you make after you get back to Rocky Mount to go back to your classroom, to your students? I want you to think about that. The next thing that I want to say, we talk about gentrification. I also, if the city would, it's a question I've always had, that we want to try to protect the housing and the people that are in the housing, the people that are on fixed income. Most of those people are on Medicaid. And we need to figure out how and when, like at the time of death, if they're on Medicaid, that house will probably be flipped back to our government, which will infuse someone else into that community. So I know we're trying to fix something, but it's going to turn right back around and go right back to where we do not want it to go to. Please take heed to that. I don't know how we can get in front of that, but that is a discussion that we are not having, and it comes every day, and I see it. My next thing is that in what I do as far as funeral goes, we have a lot of people that come to Rocky Mount. In my building alone, I have anywhere between 16 to 2,000 people that roll through that door every month. And whenever we're going to the cemetery or the church, there are a lot of people in that procession. And I take very specific routes to go through the city to show our city, even though I'm doing a funeral. Sometimes I have people coming back saying they want to move to Rocky Mount. And we need to make sure, as I said before, when they come in and they have seen things in a creative way and they want to come back and do those same things in our city, they don't have to run up a hill, but they're walking beside someone that's going to help them to create that creativity. So I applaud us for what we have done, what we're yet to do. I applaud us for coming together, even though we may have our differences. But remember, it's not about you. It's about the people that you serve. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Garland Jones. I represent Central City Revitalization Panel. I've been on that for almost 20 years. I'm also a downtown owner of several buildings in downtown. I purchased in downtown in 1999. So I've been a part of Central City Revitalization Panel because of the simple fact that my interest in downtown has always been there. My interest in housing has always been there. I'm excited about what is going on in downtown at this present time. To watch downtown from 20 years ago when I purchased in 1999 and go through all the different things that I've experienced, being on the board. We've experienced the growth of the Douglas Block. I've sat there and watched the conversations that have gone forth about the event center. I've heard the conversations sitting on the board about the Imperial Center. Also sat there and watched the conversation go on about the library. I've also watched the conversation go on about streetscape. So all of these things, as well as the train station, I've been on Central City Revitalization Panel, and I've watched all these conversations, and we've had multiple conversations and differences. But more than anything else, it's the unity that have come together and the differences that we've had that has caused people to decide to push things to the side and what's best for the city. And that's why I've stayed there. That's why I've stayed on this board. That's why I've continued to work towards where this city is going. And I'm excited about all of the grants that are available in downtown that were not there when I became a member of Central City Revitalization Panel. The only grant that was available was a facade grant. And so you had people that were just getting a $5,000 grant and painting the buildings and putting a couple of windows in, and that's all they were doing because there was nothing else available. But now there's a lot available, and you see energy in downtown that you've never seen before. And that's an awesome thing. I remember when people on the outside was saying, you know, why spend $6 million on streetscape? You spend $6 million on streetscape because downtown looked bad. And to turn it around, that money was available, and Congressman Butterfield found that money in the federal budget and brought it back to Rocky Mount, and it caused us to turn around and change the look of downtown. I'm also excited about the housing that is coming up in downtown, because with the units that are coming up in downtown, that's going to create foot traffic. And if you create foot traffic, you're going to, people will demand certain type of businesses that they want in downtown because they want to live downtown. If you want to live downtown, you want stores in downtown, you want places in downtown. So housing has always been an issue that I've always wanted to see in downtown Rocky Mount, because it would create businesses that are not there, because the demand will come once you create the foot traffic. I also like to turn around and say affordable housing is so necessary in Rocky Mount. I've been in Rocky Mount now for 29 years. I've listened throughout this week about what's been discussed, and I agree with a statement that Councilman Knight made on yesterday, that when you look at the city, and if you've been here for 29, 30 years, you know where money has gone and you know where money has not gone. And Rocky Mount needs affordable housing. Rocky Mountain neighborhoods need help. The neighborhoods that's been overlooked for years, it's time to take attention and say, hey, let's make our city look well. One thing about, you know, when I came here, people call you an outsider. I don't know what that means, but anyway. But when you walk around Rocky Mountain and you look at our city, when other people come into our city and ride through our city, we have parts of our city that look bad. And it's time to make those part of those cities look better. And housing is critical for this city like anything else. And I'm very high on housing. I've also worked with the construction trade program for the city for almost 5 years, in which we touch bases trying to bring some of the old houses back up and also give some working skills to some of our young men who were standing on corners and didn't have the opportunity to learn skills. So I've always been involved in housing. I've also was the president of Habitat for Humanity for 6 years, and we built 20-something houses off of Leggett Road for first-time home buyers. One of the beautiful things of watching a family move into a house for the first time is the joy of being a homeowner. And it's time for us to turn around and take serious consideration as we leave here. I agree with Mr. Pope. What's going to be your grade when you get back home? And what's going to be your decisions of moving forward to make all of this happen? Because when you talk about Rocky Mountain, and I'll say this in my closing, there are times when we argued, and we did it years ago, about which side of the track we did something on. Well, anytime you hear crime in Rocky Mountain from the outside, nobody asks which side of the county line it was on. They just say Rocky Mountain. And when you ride through Rocky Mountain and you look at the city, yes, you can look at one side of the track and see that funds have been held back for years. It's time to take that other side of the county line and make it look like the other side of the county line, so we can say we have a beautiful city. We have a beautiful downtown, we have beautiful neighborhoods, and people are living better, and jobs have come here, and housing is better. I have people in my church that I've been working for years trying to find housing. I'm sitting at the table and a lady texts me on the phone while I'm sitting here. She's showing me several houses that she wants to purchase. I also ran a housing counseling program for years and helped people qualify for houses. So housing has always been in my spirit. And when we look at our downtown and we look at our surrounding areas, I pray that not only do we bring our downtown up, we start bringing the neighborhoods up around downtown, because all of that will affect how our downtown look. And so I'd say to this council, as you leave here and as you go back and as you plan and as you budget and as you put together ways to make this city that we live in look better, feel better, live better, then we have to go back. I caught something on the first day that I hope you all heard from Asheville. And they said we took a day just to deal with trust and unity amongst each other. And we have to do that. We in our city have to do that. We have to start trusting and talking and dealing from a whole different perspective, because it's not about our differences that we have. It's about what can we do to make this city better, look better, live better, and the children that grow up in this city grow up better. So I thank you for all that you have given me. You've given me a lot in these few days to go back and work towards. You've given me a lot when I leave here to look at and see what I can change about myself and what's my grade in participating and unifying with some of the other groups in the city that are dealing with housing. And if we come together as a unit and start attacking this housing issue in our city and know that we all can do it together if we work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. Thank you, Mr. Jones. At this time, Dr. Valerie Bass.
Wow. What I'm aware of is that the last two delegates, I think I really appreciated your heartfelt and clear message to the city. And as someone who was born in Rocky Mountain in the 50s, I so resonated at both the personal and professional level. And I wanted to just share 3 quick things in terms of issues to think about. I'm going to start this time with the process rather than a summary. I noticed the question of how do we ensure that we're spending money, that the conversation that Daughtridge and Knight were kind of touching. I think that is another symptom of intent, impact, and lack of trust. And I'm so glad that you touched on that, Mr. Jones, because as you all are moving forward on this, you as a council will need to trust each other, that you are, so that the question of resources, so that you trust the systems that you have in place to implement accountability. And I appreciated your comments, Ms. Miller, Councilman Miller, about auditing and that being the alternative. Because I heard the city manager say to do every contract is, to me, would be a sign of lack of trust, and auditing is appropriate. So but that's a symptom of how we should see the historic challenges and the need for building trust happening within the group. I also felt like there was a lot of positive energy and support for the great work that has been done. And I know that one of the tendencies that we often have in this kind of work is to not spend enough time celebrating what is working. And so I just wanted to raise up that you all have some really competent and powerful examples in Rocky Mount of things that are going well. And I would advise the city to keep thinking about and using the resources that you have available to you from this competent staff, as well as other resources in the community. So that's the second thing. Don't just focus on, just don't put all the energy into what the challenges are, but expand and amplify the positive elements. And that links to the idea of rebranding that needs to be happening. Someone spoke about in the paper, just to put much more energy into that side of things. And then another thing that I was aware of is that the question about revenue generation and development, and doing that in a way that doesn't lead to dysfunctional gentrification, that's going to be another important theme that we keep alive as you're in that conversation. And I think people are sensitive to that, and so we're going to keep thinking about how to make it affordable for everyone. And you all were talking about that some yesterday, so there's some ideas out here that you can use. And let me see if there's anything else. I think, let me just check. Oh, I know one other thing that I think is really important, and I saw this earlier too. This goes back to what I'm seeing in terms of the competence of the staff. As I'm noticing that when you all raise questions about practice and policy, that Rochelle the city manager and others have talked about changes that have been made in policy that allow for accountability. And the example being the separation of business and collection from grants and other funding. So I think that again, in a trusting environment, it wouldn't be how do you do that? It would be an assumption that we're doing it. And the question is, how can you help me understand how? Or are there some new ways to do it? So again, build on what you have, notice what you have, and then think about how to keep problem solving around the issues that have arisen from this conversation. Any questions about what I've said?
Thank you, Dr. Valerie Betts. It's our action statement, Dr. Angie.
Thank you again for that discussion, both Mr. Harris and our two board and commission members, Mr. Pope and Reverend Jones. Very insightful. I'm certainly learning a lot being in the room. The actions I heard were around guidelines for the READY program. Guidelines for the READY program. There were questions about or inquiries about the cycle process. Where are the READY funds coming from? More process and certainly information around monitoring of the grant process, which Dr. Val just touched on. The capacity, requirements, compensation were all things that certainly I heard an ask on. I think they fall into one piece, but areas that we can certainly delve further into. Update on the building facades and what that looked like in relation to the READY project. Marketing plan for the READY project with more clarity around the number of vacant lots and or properties that are for sale, number of buildings, and then particularly there was some budget evaluation information that City Manager Rochelle commented on as an action to be considered. So we will follow up on these items with Madam City Manager to ensure that we captured these thoroughly. Dr. Val, did I miss anything?
I think that, not for now. No, I think that's it.
Great, I think we're ready for lunch, sir.
Thank you so much for this morning's session. I want to say thank you, City Manager. Event Center has been flowing greatly well, and thanks to all of our downtown eateries and other things that have served. It's been beautiful to see our downtown filled every weekend, and we had no incidents of anything happening other than people having a great time. Thank you, City Manager, and thank you for all to make that work. At this time, we will recess. We will go and have our lunch. We will be back at 1 o'clock.